guys, it's Steph here with the FlowerFanatic. I hope you're having a fabulous December day. We are getting so much snow, so I thought it'd be good to hop on here and kind of show you what I've planned for next year as far as my seeds go, my cutting garden, and all the things that I'm going to be growing. I learned so much last year having my cutting garden for the first year. So I live in a zone 6B climate. We're considered a desert. It gets really hot in the summer, and we usually get snowy winters, but we haven't had a lot of that. And we also had record-breaking temperatures. We had the hottest year we've ever had in the summertime with a lot of drought and water restrictions. So it was definitely a challenging year. I'm glad I survived it. Everyone around me was feeling the same way. But because of it, I learned so much about what does well in my climate that just provides, these certain flowers provided so many blooms all summer long, and they just were a little bit more drought tolerant. And so I think I'm just going to kind of give you an idea of what I'm going to do. It's just kind of a planning video. It's not a how to plant all these seeds or a tutorial, but it kind of gives you an idea of how you can get blooms from early spring all the way until fall, especially if you live in a climate like mine. Anyways, my husband built a beautiful greenhouse this last January. I helped him a little bit, but he really is the craftsman. First goal is to get blooms all the way from early spring until fall. I have some cold hardy annuals that I will be planting, and then when those start to fizzle with the heat, I have some really heat loving ones. I have a few climbers, and then I have my dahlias will be my beautiful fall show. I mean, they do come out in late summer, but they really take off late summer to fall. So let's talk about these cold hardy annual ones first. So ranunculus, this one is a little bit trickier in my climate, but I love them dearly. And so I'm going for it again. They don't love my climate as much just because our spring is so up and down. It gets kind of hot fast in May and when they kind of start to take off. So I'm definitely going to have to grow these in a low tunnel. That is my goal. I'm going to start them earlier than I did last year. Last year I started them way too late. I actually just chucked them in the ground and they did good for like a week, but the heat set in. So I really only got to enjoy them for a week. So a low tunnel is going to be a little bit more maintenance, but definitely worth it just because they don't really like temperatures above 70 degrees. But they are just a gorgeous cut flower in springtime. And then I've got some stock, which I'm actually going to put in the low tunnel with my ranunculus. I'm going to start them at the same time, January. So I'll probably put them out in my yard I'm going to put them in a garden box. And all I'm going to do is get those little PVC pipes, wrap them around, and get some plastic. Super simple. If it does get warmer in the day, I'll have to kind of lift that plastic. But I will try to get them in the ground in March so that I can get some blooms for long enough to make it worthwhile before that heat sets in. So I'm so excited to try that. Stock smells so good. I didn't do well last year with my stock either because I started too late. I thought maybe it was the flower, but everyone is successfully growing them. So it was definitely user error. But that's kind of what's fun about trying your cutting garden for the first time. You learn so much, and next year you know what to do, just a little bit more. I also directly sowed this fall some snapdragons, some Iceland poppies, some daffodils, some larkspur. So all of these, I think they're gonna be awesome. And then they kind of fizzle off at the same time. Okay, so now that I've covered all those cold hardy annuals, I'm gonna plant. Once I will take those out, except for the snapdragons. I'm gonna keep them in the ground because they really take off again in fall. And I kind of can keep them like a perennial where I live. And I just cover them with some straw, and they are just really good. Even though they're zone 7, you can kind of manipulate them a little bit. And I like this because the next year they just come back so much taller, like 3 feet tall, and you just have so many blooms so early on. So the heat-loving annuals that I'm going to be planting this year are zinnias, of course. I love zinnias. They love it here. But some of my zinnia varieties didn't do so hot, and I'm just going to grow the ones that killed it. So my Benary's Giant Salmon Rose zinnia was incredible. I think it was just salmon, not rose. And then my Benary's Giant White was awesome, my Polar Bear White. And then I'm also going to be planting a cool one called, sorry, I have it right here. Oh, it's a Benary's Giant White. So all the Benary's Giant ones do really well for me. I didn't deal with powdery mildew, which just kind of ruins the look of your zinnias. So it's just another variety, but it has like a deep ruby maroon type color. I'm really excited about this one. I'm gonna pair it with some amaranth. So my red spike amaranth just took off. It didn't really start to get its blooms until like late summer, but once it did, oh my gosh, it just went nuts. So the Hot Biscuits is kind of the same, it's the same variety, but it gives you that like beautiful golden fall color. And by the time fall came, I was really craving something like that and I didn't have it. So I'm gonna add that in with some of my straw flower. Straw flower killed it here. This is a cool flower. It's kind of papery. It comes out feeling papery and dry. It's a really good dry flower. And it did take a little later to come out, that late summer to fall, but once it did really well. And it was just a little bit more drought tolerant. So I'm actually gonna put the amaranth, the giant wine, Benares, zinnia, along with those straw flowers in one row. And then I've got the one that is a challenge that everybody says is so hard, but oh my goodness. I went to my sister's house and I visited a gardener that loved growing cut flowers, and she grew lysanthes. You might actually be watching this video. Oh my goodness. I just cannot tell you how beautiful it looks in real life. I mean, I've seen it online, but it is a whole nother story when you see it in person. And she successfully grew it, and her climate's very similar to mine. So I'm definitely going to be throwing in some lysanthes. I'm actually going to start that in about January 1st or even a week before, like right after Christmas. So that's when you've got to start early. There are a few more that I didn't mention. So I did sow some feverfew, which is like a cutest little mini daisy-like flower. And then I'm going to throw some cosmos in, cosmos with some verbena. Verbena is a perennial, but I love those two together. So I'm going to have that in a row. I've overwintered my black and blue salvia. I'm not really going to grow that, but I'm storing it in my greenhouse. You can actually store it in your basement. This will be my 4th year, and it is just an absolute beast. So I'm going to plant that along a fence where some plants are trying to fill in that haven't quite filled in. And then I have a few climbers that I'm going to do. So my first cold hardy climber is a sweet pea. Love sweet peas. I hear they smell really good. Never grown them, and they do like those cooler temperatures. So once those start to fizzle, I've got some hollyhocks. They were my killer flower that I loved last year, and I'm gonna actually just grow those in the greenhouse, and they produce so many flowers that first year. They're gonna be in kind of a shadier area. It's gonna get plenty of sunlight, but it makes them a little bit shorter and a little bit bushier. I'm gonna put that along the side of my greenhouse after I take out the sweet pea. But I just cannot believe how many blooms they provided. It was like, once they came out in June, I had nonstop blooms all the way, and they were one of my later ones to keep blooming till like November, and until it got like consistently cold and a lot of freezes. But that is a lot of flowers. And then I'm also gonna plant some hyacinth bean. This is my heat climber. So I have some clematis on my arbors in my cutting garden that I just put in this last fall, and so they're not going to be mature or established, so I'll stick them there until they get a little bit bigger and start to cover my arbors. But this is a cool one. It has really full leaves. They get kind of purple green, and then they have this beautiful bean interest right here with some cute purple flowers. I don't know if you can see that, but they get big really fast. They are vigorous climbers. I'm just going to make sure to give them a lot of fertilizer and water at the beginning. But I think that's it. I do have one cup and saucer vine. I have some from last year. I planted those way too late. They didn't do too well, and I let them dry out and didn't fertilize them nearly enough. They finally started taking off once I gave them some fertilizer, but I actually had a bloom. The blooms started to come out right when the frost hit, so I enjoyed one bloom. But I'm gonna actually put them along a fence where I have some other clematis that are trying to get established, and get them definitely out in the ground earlier, fertilize them in the beginning, and make sure I give them some nice water. And I think they'll do a lot better, and I'll get blooms quite a bit earlier because they are the coolest, my favorite climber. I wanted to add, now that I've covered all of my flowers, I cannot wait to show you what this looks like next summer. Just follow along. I will kind of show you how I plant them if you are curious. My dahlias are coming in a whole separate video. I bought some beautiful varieties, some tubers that haven't come in quite yet, but I was surprised how easy it was to grow dahlias. The grasshoppers just loved them at the beginning. So that gets me to my next few tips to end this video. The 3 biggest mistakes I made this last year was I didn't net my flowers. You hear people say you need to stake, you need to net, but until you experience it on your own, you quite don't know the value or importance of it. But that was huge. So stake, net, and get on your pest management early. So I had a million grasshoppers last year, and if I had gotten on the neem oil before they hatched, kind of early spring, that would have made a huge difference. So make sure you don't get on that too late, because by then they're already taking over all of your flowers. Anyways, I hope you guys like this video. I'm so excited to see what happens next year. I have a lot more going on, and I'm just excited to start getting in the greenhouse. If you guys have any questions, comment down below. I know this was a lot of information. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit it. We'll talk to you later. Bye.